Hi, welcome to the Change Leaders Playbook, bringing you all things delivery and leadership in a podcast. Today, I'm joined by seasoned program and agile delivery professional and author Amanda Falshaw. Amanda's an agile delivery and transformation leader with over 15 years experience helping organizations scale delivery, embed agile practices, and achieve predictable outcomes. Now, she has a large-scale agile transformations across SaaS, media, and digital organizations in terms of her experience. And by day, Amanda's currently an AI Enablement Lead, and in her spare time, she writes a variety of books, including a new book, The Modern Delivery Manager. I've had the pleasure of knowing Amanda for a little while, and I'm very excited to catch up with her today. So with that, I'd like to welcome Amanda. Hello.
Hello, Cliff. Really nice to be here.
Excellent. So it's been, well, I don't think it's been that long, but I'm glad we are meeting and catching up again. Yeah, always good to see you. Now, Amanda, I want to just start by talking about just getting a bit of a flavour around you, your journey. So you've got lots of experience in program delivery, project delivery, and everything in between. What got you into this space in the first place, and how did you get to your current types of positions?
That's a really interesting question because I actually started out training to be a nurse.
Wow.
For about 18 months, and I couldn't pronounce the drugs. I was scared of being qualified at 21 and looking after people's lives. And so I decided to change tact, and I went to Manchester Metropolitan University to do environmental management. That was great. That was lovely. After my degree, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I got asked to be a research assistant at the geography department. And in that department, it was 1996, so the internet had just arrived. And the projects that the guys were working on were all to do with digitizing GIS onto the web. So it was actually really groundbreaking work, and I was responsible for making websites in front page, and so I did that for about 3 years, and then one of the PhD students left to go and work for something called an agency. There was a company called Unite actually in Manchester, and he said, "Why don't you come across and join us?" So I went across as a content editor actually. Not for long, because soon I was given a project management hat. And this is why I really cut my teeth on the industry. So I was there for 5 years. I moved through the project management training like Prince 2. I went on a fantastic Dale Carnegie course called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was amazing, actually. And so 5 years there, we got bought out by N Brown, a large company in Manchester. And then they made quite a few of us redundant, actually. And then I got a job at Reading Room. And I worked for Reading Room for about 14 years. And they're a company that build websites and all sorts of things, actually. Wonderful agency. I got to work in Australia for 2 years with them. And this is where I wore many different hats, like project director, head of production, operations manager, all sorts of things. And so I saw lots and lots of different projects that came through the doors, and then lots of projects going wrong, rescuing projects, working agile, working waterfall. And that was an amazing opportunity. Then I worked for iDocs, and I worked in their M&A team for a couple of years because Reading Room got sold to them. And then 2 years later, they sold Reading Room to Fat Media, and then made me redundant again. And then I worked for Fat Media for a few years. Then I decided to take consultancy ago, and I worked for And Digital for 4 years, doing all sorts of things, transformations. Working for And Digital was eye-opening, having worked in an agency, because the landscape is so different in terms of agile working, for one, different operating systems for another. Large scale systems, which I'd never even witnessed before. It was mind blowing how big some of these estates were, especially then having a great opportunity for working with the BBC. That was a fantastic opportunity, and I love that. But that whole career has given me such a wide range of working with people, working with clients, working in completely different ways of working. And, being that person that wants to instigate change and better ways of working, producing wonderful outputs for them, working with completely different teams all the way along. So, yeah, that was probably a bit rambly, but that's kind of my story.
Now, you've done a lot recently, and I still don't know how you managed to do this right in work. You've been writing, and you've been doing all sorts of things in between that. Do you want to tell us about what got you into writing in the first instance? Because I think it wasn't just, in fact, I talked about the modern delivery manager, which is one thing I really want to touch on a lot today. But you started writing other types of books as well. So do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, well, funny enough, I've always enjoyed a bit of creative writing at work, really, in doing proposals and making things. I've always been really passionate about formatting and making things easy to read, because I am slightly dyslexic, so it's important to me that it's things are easy to read, easy to and interesting to read as well. So from proposal writing, I always then thought there was a book in me. I always thought it would be a biography. I don't know why, because it'd be so boring. But then I met my now husband, Andrew, and we got a dog, Wallace. And one day, Andrew came back from walking the dog, and he said, "You'll never guess what? There was a cow in the temple." And I said, "Oh, there's a story in that. I'm going to write a story about that." I did. I wrote the story, and then I thought, I don't know if anything will happen with this story. I liked it, but I wanted to write about something else. And so I had this idea, because I'm a landlord. I've got a few properties with tenants in, and I also have a holiday let with a friend of mine. And I thought, oh, you know what? It would be really cool to write a book about a treehouse hotel. And so that's when I really started to get to write lots and lots of stories around this hotel, where there's the manager of the hotel, there's a marketeer, and there's the sort of general running around, sort of looking after the place. And I wrote about 15 stories. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? So I thought, well, I'll send it off to an editor. So I spent some money to edit the first 3 books, and that was really interesting, because what she taught me was a lot around, grammar, talking at the right level for children, and it was a really interesting process. And then I thought, well, I need to get it illustrated. Ooh, I can't illustrate it. But Andrew, at a similar time, had bought himself a tablet. I said, and I do doodle. At one time, I'd drawn him people at work call him barn owl. So I drew an owl, and I gave it to him. And he said, "You can do your own illustrations, Amanda." And I was like, I don't know if I can. Anyway, I quickly bought my own tablet and started messing around. I used Sketchbook, and you know what? It was so cathartic, drawing and colouring and using different effects on brushes. And so I did. I then illustrated my own books. And I mean, I have got a lot better from when I first started. I'm actually redoing one of my books from the original. And then I started to publish the books and put them into Amazon. It's quite a complicated process, but I did manage to get them published on Amazon's site. And then I needed to start thinking about marketing.
I mean, that is brilliant. I'm just going as you were speaking, I was just thinking you've got a lot of things on the go as well as your profession, and we could talk about your profession all day long. But there's all these other things to you. There's multiple facets to you: an illustrator, a writer of children's books, as well as books for grown-ups as well, and other things on top of that. But a landlord as well. Goodness me. But I guess for me, I just listen to you and I just think how important is it to have other things in your life outside of work? And what does that mean to you? I know it's not something I was planning to ask, but just the more I listen to you, the more I think, there's more to you than meets the eye. And I think potentially the way that you've excelled in work has been because you've not had work on your mind 24/7, and perhaps you've had other things to keep you occupied and to keep you maybe to keep your mind active, so that when you do go back to work, you can actually focus on doing the things that matter properly. I just wonder whether there's anything in that for you. What do you think?
I think there is. I think there's an element of control in the work that you do yourself, and not everything is controlled in a work environment. So that it gives me a lot of satisfaction in what I do. It's also given me more confidence at work, actually, particularly because with children's books, I had to go cap in hand to local books and say, I've written these books. Do you think you would put them on the shelves? And, that was so scary because it's your own work and it's your own rejection. But I was really lucky. I live in Buxton and there's a wonderful bookshop, Scriveners. She's been so supportive. And book, what's it called? Book Folk as well. He's been lovely and supportive also. And same with the tourist information. The lady there, Louise, has been super supportive of me. And then you get asked to do read alouds. And reading out your own stories is so scary, so much scarier than doing a pitch. And because it was so scary, but because I did it, it's given me confidence to do stuff like this, Cliff. I think when I met you a year or so ago, I was like, no, there's no way I'll do it. So it helps you to grow in your own career, and it helps you to ground yourself as well. Because I know I can stand up and do a presentation with my books, I can stand up and present about my work. So, and it gives me that downtime that TV doesn't give me. It just enables me to switch off entirely and to focus just on my work.
Yeah, that's very, very good. I've got a lot to learn in that space, to be honest with you. I actually, when I was growing up, I was okay at art. And I just stopped. So now I'm thinking maybe if I could pick it up again. I have a tablet, so maybe I could start to do doodling and see where it takes me. Who knows? But I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I can illustrate my own book, though. We'll see. That's probably a stretch.
You'll soon learn. Honestly, do it. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. So talk to me then about. Let's have a chat about the Modern Delivery Manager, which, by the way, I got my copy from Amazon. It came very quickly, and it's a great read. So anyone that's listening, feel free to do that yourself. It's great. What made you decide to write it?
It's interesting actually, because in the sort of authorship world, you people ask for ARC readers, which is advanced reader copies, and I offered to do an ARC read for a lady who'd done a textbook. And I have to admit, It was so boring. Um, I won't tell you what it's about, but it was very boring. It was formatted really badly, no images. It was just hard to read. Classic textbook. And I thought, I could do this. I know the publishing process. But what shall I write about? And I was inspired actually to write The Modern Delivery Manager because over the past few years, I've certainly found that the role of delivery manager is sort of quietened off a little bit. And I'd be sitting at my desk thinking, there must be something I should be doing. And it just really made me think. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about modern delivery manager. And what that did was really help me to understand what I did. Because I found it really difficult to articulate what delivery managers do, especially to my family. I would always say, it's like a project manager, or I work in IT, and my family don't even understand what agile are. So even saying an agile project manager does. So I thought, I'm going to explain it and I'm going to make my family read it so they understand what I do and understand the differences between delivery managers and project managers, actually, because there is a huge difference, and understand the difference between a project manager and a product manager, because we're also very different. And also it made me think, okay, what can I tell other people that I do when I mentor them that don't know me? How can we better at being at being a modern delivery manager? And also, how do we tell the wider world how valuable we are and actually what we do in our day-to-day job? And I've seen in places over the years, actually, sort of ebbs and flows. I mean, when Agile first came out, there was no delivery manager or project manager. And suddenly, excuse me, there was a realization that there was a role there for someone like a delivery manager. And again, over the years, redundancies happen in organizations, and suddenly it's the delivery manager that's taken away. And lo and behold, a few years later, they're back again. So I really wanted to explain to people and organizations what we do and why we're valuable.
Yeah, I found a similar thing over the years as well, because there's, with things like agile and even other methods of delivery, there was this almost divergence away from having a single accountable person who has an end-to-end responsibility over one or multiple streams of work. I definitely see that it's becoming more of a thing, of an expectation. And my reasoning behind that really is that no matter what gets delivered, no matter what is what's on the table to be achieved, it's always easier to have a single point of contact that has a breadth of understanding of what's happening and has the influence to get things done. And I don't think that's ever going to go away anytime soon. But what's your take on it? Do you think that that's one of the reasons why, or why do you actually think that people did not feel that those sorts of roles were relevant or as relevant? And yeah, what's your thoughts around that?
I think so. Our teams have matured, right? Years ago, because the project manager or delivery manager or scrum master understood what agile was, they could guide the teams through the ceremonies. They could police the Jira board, they could police ceremonies. But I think over the years, people instinctively know how to do agile. They know how to do the ceremonies. They don't need that hand-holding anymore. And so what that's kind of open, and also I must mention AI becoming very prevalent in all the workflows that we use. And that in some regards is making people think, okay, well, we don't need a delivery manager because all they do is police the Jira board and and all the things that you see that they do, right? And I think that is people might think that those tools take delivery managers away, but they've completely lost the point of what we actually do day to day. And I think that's why there's a slight downturn. And that again is why I wanted to write the book. And it does has a chapter actually on delivery managers and AI, and how we should be using AI to up our game, but not to make us redundant.
Yeah, I mean that's an obvious thing that I'm starting to see as well. It's still early days, and right now for me, I see AI as being more of a help than an hindrance, and something that hopefully is starting to take away all of the, or many of the more mundane tasks. And what I'm finding is that it's freeing me up to think more and make better decisions as a result of it. But what are your thoughts around maybe distilling that chapter in terms of how is AI evolving in terms of delivery roles, and how can we use it to the best of our abilities?
I mean, I use AI daily. I think it's really useful, especially when you work from home, right? You've got someone that you can. Normally you'd go and ask your neighbour sitting next to you, what do you think about this? But now you can ask AI. And especially in remote environments, that's a wee bit of company, right? As well. And
sorry to butt in, if I remember, haven't you given yours a name as well? if I remember from previous conversations.
Yes, I called him Chad. I was just so sick of saying ChatGPT. And I kind of humanized it a little bit, but just makes it more fun for me. I mean, I use a range of tools actually now, depending where you're working, obviously. That's my own personal version, but I use different ones depending on company regulations, and making sure that you're using things that are ring fenced for certain companies, of course. So I'm going slightly off topic, but I spoke to somebody the other day about AI and why they used it. And I'd never thought of this before. And they said to me, the best thing about it is that previously I'd have to ask my line manager or a peer who might be an expert in coding this piece of work. But now I'm not breaking their context. I'm not disturbing them. I can ask AI and I'm not having to wait for them. So that element of it, I thought, wow, I've never thought about that. That's brilliant. So you're not disturbing people whilst you're asking AI questions. So for time saving other people's time. I mean, a word of warning with the AI though would be it's not always right. I've gone round in circles before now with AI, and I did publish a little book for a short while on dog-friendly pubs in Buxton, and I asked AI for some facts, and the first version I published had wrong facts in, right? Because I just believed Chad verbatim that these facts were real about Buxton. I was like, well, anyway, I mean, it's ridiculously easy to replace your manuscripts on Amazon, luckily. So I had to do my own fact checking. So yes, a word of warning, it still can hallucinate, and it's very, very, very convincing. Anyway, I would say use AI as your shadow. Don't use it as, verbatim. Use it to help you here and there. I mean, I hate writing minutes. It's for my whole career, I've hated writing minutes. So transcribing meetings is a fabulous introduction. Using it to summarize, debate, but you need to have the final word at the end of the day. You need to be that human in the loop. But yeah, use it and have a bit of fun with it. Don't be scared of it. It's incredibly useful, but you need to use it with those guardrails.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't stand doing minutes as well, and actions and all that sort of stuff. And thankfully, it's now pretty much taken care of. I'm also, I also think that, back to your point about hallucination, I find that using AI in my workplace is more useful to me when it's based on content that I've created, so to speak. So, for example, if I've been in a meeting and we've talked about scope, or we've talked about our planning activities, and we're actually doing some planning, if once we record that, we can then change or use the content to maybe turn them into, Jira tickets or something like that, and articulate them in the appropriate way as a story, in the way that we're supposed to do it. That's the sort of thing that thankfully I don't have to do that much, but it would be very laborious to do it, or even to write things as requirements. You can now do it in such a way, use your transcripts to write things the way this should be structured, so that other people can actually work from them. And for me, those sort of low-hanging fruit areas are really, really powerful and save a lot of time on a personal level. So yeah, I agree. Right. So how do you think that delivery roles are evolving? So we've still got, the evolution of agility. I would still say that waterfall type delivery still is a thing and still exists, and probably still should, right, depending on what we're trying to deliver. How do you think delivery roles are evolving and will evolve over time?
Possibly into running more than one team, running multiple teams, potentially. And I think in some organisations that's okay, where you've got mature teams. They also have the support of product managers. They also have the support of, your tech, very clever tech leads as well. I think there is scope to be more of a sort of program delivery manager in those situations. But I will say that whilst things are running well in delivery teams, delivery managers can focus elsewhere. But if something goes wrong, they need to be there to fly in and help. So I think that's the word of warning for not having an embedded delivery person, is that on the surface it looks like it's going well. Delivery, I think, are those people who spot issues really quickly. They're usually really experienced in their domain, and they can see a problem a mile off, and they can sense when delivery is getting blocked. It's getting and probably it's going to be blocked before other people realize it, right? Because if you're normally the person to notice when somebody's gone quiet in stand-up, and they're usually quite bubbly. You're the person who spots frowning, going, not sure if we can do this in 2 weeks. And you're the person who will pull them out and go on, you don't look very happy about that. Can we do it in 2 weeks? And that just gives them opportunity to go, Amanda, actually, I don't think we can. I know we might need to, but we need to be realistic about that. So I think a delivery manager needs to be that person who's spotting issues before they happen. I've always believed in making sure that delivery is very well known by any reliant teams. So we work a lot cross-functionally now, don't we, with other teams that are dependent. Being that person who's in touch, friendly, and brave to talk to those other teams to make sure that the path to delivery is clear down the way.
Yeah, very good. So I think, from what I can gather, which I absolutely agree with, is the ability to use your experience and personal touch to actually engage with people, preempt and resolve things before they become problematic. So whatever technology comes into place to help us, that those skills are just not going to go away, are they? Because they're irreplaceable, and that experience is irreplaceable as well. So, I totally agree. Totally agree. And hopefully using AI and things like that, for example, should free our roles up, or delivery people up and leaders up, to be able to actually do more of that and spot things more early and resolve problems more proactively as well. And that's certainly what I'm starting to see. So I have a bit more thinking time to be able to spot things, which is quite reassuring now. So we'll see what the future holds. Hopefully there'll be more of that. I also wanted to ask a question about, in the book as well, you mentioned something which I think is talked about a bit, but people don't really get it, which is flow. Like, because one of the things you've got in the book, it says why flow often matters more than just process in the modern organization. And a lot of people, I've been certainly used to this, where people are really feel reassured that they have the ceremonies in place, they have all the meetings in place, all the reporting in place, but they actually haven't got the right activities or the right work happening when it needs to happen, and then therefore things get delayed, right? What's your take on flow, and why that potentially is more important than the process side of things? What does it mean to you?
So what it means to me is that you're enabling work to flow through the entire system at an even predictable rate, I suppose. And your job in that is, as we were just talking about, is spotting those interdependencies, is spotting those blockers, using metrics as a light touch, actually. I believe in agile metrics, but I think we should be using them lightly, not as a weapon. So I think metrics do play their part, and they can help to indicate potentially where things may be becoming a blocker. So metrics are really important. I think the personal touch, as you said before, Cliff, is wildly important to understand those end-to-end systems. Much earlier in my career, it became really important to me to be really friendly with tech ops because they're the end of the chain quite often. And so friendly with tech ops and making sure they're aware that actually we've got a launch next month, we're going to need these people on hand. So it's looking after that end-to-end flow, being that personal, friendly, brave person sometimes, to have those conversations and always look for those opportunities to ensure that the flow is working all the way through. There's another book I read, actually, which my current CEO always tells people to read, and it's brilliant. And that's The Goal. And that's around, it's actually written as a storybook, which I found really inspiring as somebody who's not a massive textbook reader, because they are generally quite boring. Anyway, this is written like a story. It's all about unblocking and keeping the flow of materials within a factory, actually, from beginning to end. And that's the same concept of flow in the delivery sense, is that we're keeping things going. We're looking for burnout. We're looking for people who aren't engaged, and we're just making sure that things can continue as they're supposed to.
Yeah, that is really helpful, and I certainly agree with that as well, because ultimately, managing risks, managing dependencies, all the usual things, they really are about maintaining flow, and anything that disrupts it is problematic towards the end goals. And just looking at it in that straightforward view actually could help and should help people to prioritize their time efficiently and spend less time, hopefully, on making things look brilliant, and more time on actually doing things that matter and actually have a meaningful impact on whatever the objectives of a project or a program or work stream are. So yeah, very, very useful. Now, I'm interested in, I think we've talked a bit about this, but I'm interested to get your sort of top tips in terms of if somebody was coming into the industry and thought, actually, gosh, I want to be in like a project type role, or want to deliver technology, but I'm sensing that there's a long way to go, and some of these things are being automated. What would be the top tips that you'd have for somebody getting into the industry, so to speak, and what skills they should be picking up for themselves, and how they should be looking to navigate their careers?
That's a perfect question. I've got a son. He was 28 this weekend, actually. And ever since sort of he started uni, I've been saying to him, you'd make a brilliant project manager or delivery manager. I've said it to him for years. He's not doing it yet. Anyway, I gave him my book at Christmas, and he texted me only the other day because he'd been on holiday, so he took my book along. And he texted me saying, I'm going to read it out because I've read your book. I found it inspiring, and I think the practical advice is really clever and will be useful to come back to in the future. And you know what? That made me so happy, and it made me so proud of him. And I really hope he comes into delivery or project management because it's a brilliant career. Anyway, I would certainly recommend, I think, start off as a junior project manager. I think project managers, whilst they are different to delivery managers, the project management does give you tools that you would use as a delivery manager, such as, RAID and stakeholder management and all sorts of things that you use in both project management and delivery management. So I would definitely do project management courses, and just start off brave as a junior, shadow some other delivery or project managers, and just get used to the domain that you want to be working as a delivery manager or a project manager, and really soak up the personalities, the ways of working, look at agile practices, and for those of us really who want to up our game in delivery management, my advice would be to try and upgrade one ceremony at a time. So, because I don't know, you can be in stand-ups and they've been the same for the last year and everyone's bored of them. So, mix it up, make it fun again. Work should be fun. We're here a long time, so it's important work is fun. So upgrade your ceremonies, be braver, talk out, if something feels off in a meeting, and you're sensing something, then be brave and call it out. It's a safe place. If you've created these ceremonies that are safe places, then it's also safe for you to talk, right? And say, I think it's 3 weeks. And as you get more experienced, you know instinctively if a team can deliver something that's been asked, in the space of time that they've been delivered. So it's just being brave and calling it out, and get to know as many people as you can in that industry, in your environment. I think that's also important.
Yeah, they are really good points. A couple of things that came to me was around getting to know people, that networking, and trying to just involve yourself into the industry that you're working in, and something that I'm terrible at, which is making work fun. So the more fun you make things for people, the more engaged they are, and the more they open up to you and trust you with more, and ask you for more, invite you to more. I probably still have a lot to learn in terms of making things fun and engaging, certainly meetings, because I just want to get them done and get the information that I need from it, or give the information that I need. And it's not always about that. It's not always transactional. So,
No, it's very human. And the other thing I would say is have one-to-ones with your team. Get to know them on a personal level, right? And getting to know people on a personal level creates this bond and this trust that enables you to have those candid conversations. So 100% Cliff, I agree with that.
Mhm. Right. This is the dreaded time that I have, which is where you get to ask me a complicated, challenging question that you can make as hard as possible. So I'll give you that opportunity if you have one question or two, even if you want, and I'll do my best to answer it. Something you've always wanted to ask me, but just never got around to it. And now's the time.
Well, I wanted to ask, actually, where do you think delivery adds the most human value in an AI accelerated team?
That's a tough one. I've never expected a question like that. The most human value in an AI accelerated team. Okay. So I think we covered some of it before when we talked about building relationships, even when you're using AI tools to get important work done. I think where delivery leadership can add the most value in that space really is where we take time out to put away technology, actually, and let the technology work for us, such that we can then take time away from it and build relationships, whether it's doing something engaging or just having ideally a face-to-face conversation to have just an open discussion about how are things going, what are our concerns, and do it even without transcribing, for example, but just doing it in a way where the team know that you're in front of each other, you're actually actively listening. And I would say potentially in dispersed teams, it's probably not ideal, but in teams where you can meet face to face, it is perfect, because it means then that the technology is not a distraction and it's there as a tool to help you to build relationships. I think those relationships and the trust that's built with teamwork helps to increase productivity and surface things that otherwise wouldn't be surfaced. So I think actually when the technology is so rife and so productive, just taking a step away from it, letting it do its thing and building strong relationships in person, ideally will be the best way. And of course it can happen remotely as well. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Probably not the answer you're hoping for, but that's one way I think we can make it work for us.
No, I agree with you. And you just reminded me, actually, in one of my teams, a few years ago, every 2 weeks, we used to have game afternoon, just only for 20 minutes, but we just play some fun games. And that helps to, like break down the barriers and create relationships and trust. So no, I agree. And we were a remote team, so which is why obviously we used technology to play these games, but it wasn't important. I did protect that 20 minutes because it was important for the team. So yeah, 100%. Meet outside. Again, just on a personal, let's not talk shop kind of thing. Yeah. So yes, nice.
Do you have any tips on art at all, doodling, and what to do, what I should not do?
Get a decent pen for your tablet.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah, because not all of them. I think mine's got like a bit of a suspension on it, so you can enables you to do different sort of a light draw, swipe, or a hard one. And cheap styluses won't do that very well.
Right. Okay.
So you need a good stylus.
I'll bear that in mind for next time. Now, yeah, it's gone very quickly, Amanda, as I thought it would do. It's been a real pleasure having a chat with you again. I hope we can catch up again soon. And see you again soon. Thanks very much for coming along.
Thank you, Cliff. Pleasure.
Thanks.